further ado, let me invite our very first speaker for today, Dr. Peter Xiao, to talk about his work on tinkering and how his team has adapted his research for home-based learning. Dr. Xiao, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Give me a minute to share the screen. Oops. Can you all see the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Hi, good afternoon. Yes, in this talk, I'd like to share about our recent experiences in carrying out an after-school program in a blended approach, right? This is traditionally a face-to-face activity that we do before the pandemic. And this is something that we've been trying out. How could we actually adapt what we've been doing normal in the face-to-face to a blended approach, right? This project is a partnership between Science Centre Singapore, New Life Community Services, Singapore Secondary School, and NIE to develop lower track students' interest in science and social emotional well-being through tinkering activities. New Life Community Services is a social service agency that runs student hubs in our housing estates. So they actually drop-by centers that students could drop in after school and to provide mentoring services to these students, right? So what we've been doing is that as a partnership, we have been offering opt-in tinkering activities to NA students, that means normal academic students in the lower track, to participate in activities after school, right? These activities are carried out in a tinkering space provided by school, and each of sessions are attended by 20 students from the 2 NA classes, right? The sessions are normally facilitated by our partners in the Science Centre and New Life Community Services. But during the circuit breaker phase 2, which we see the schools opening up and more CCA activities are starting, we wanted to resume our after-school activities, but in a blended approach, right? But there are actually measures actually put in place by the school. For example, in the school, students from different classes are not allowed to mix in the after-school activities. So we only can open up our after-school activity to one class and also to a number of students. Instead of having 20, we could only open up to maybe around half the number because of the limitation of space and social distancing. All right. But why we did in a blended approach, actually, we were very curious about students' learning experiences and engagement in tinkering if we move the activity to a blended format. In normal, what I wanted to do was to see how we can actually get students to meet face-to-face, and we give them materials to continue what they were doing at home, right? And also we provide support in the way of online platforms for us to meet with them, right? So for partnership, we were actually very interested in some of the design. How do we actually design a blended tinkering experience for the students, and how would actually students respond to such an approach? Right, so I just want to share all these experiences with you in the next few slides. But before we actually talk about the experience, I just want to share something about what tinkering is, right? So tinkering actually is based on the theory of constructionism proposed by Seymour Papert. I think the central idea is that learners can build knowledge structures in their mind with external representations. So this is when they construct physical or maybe virtual entities in software, and programming or that can be reflected, edited, and shared. Okay, these artifacts they create, as you can see in the diagram, can be shared with others and also can be revised for improvement, or even in they build greater complexity in the artifacts. And they can reflect on how even these artifacts work. So actually you can see the diagram, you can see the learners are constructing models of how the artifacts work as they are creating artifacts, and they can be shared. And through that, actually they develop an understanding of the world around them. Right. This again actually shows our design ideas or principles that we went about tinkering. So on the left-hand side, you see the 5 principles that we normally start with our tinkering activities. First, it actually is to low walls, and we have easy starting points for the students to start off with. Second, actually, in tinkering activities, we allow students to achieve their goals in multiple pathways, so white walls, and also students there's also different levels of sophistications actually students can achieve. So it's up to them how they want to achieve it. So it's the high ceiling, right? So we also wanted to do achieve to that the construction process also is when they do something, they build artifacts, actually their peers, and there's also a lot of social scaffolding going on. And lastly, it's iterative cycles that actually students have the opportunities to try, fail, and try again. And what you see at your diagram, you see it's a very a non-linear path. They actually may have roadblocks, they may take a turn, they may find new avenues, and they have many different pathways, right? So what you see in the center part, learning in tinkering is characterized by the following areas according to Bivan and colleagues, right? So first, there's engagement of students in constructing their artifacts. Second, students have the agency to take the initiative and ownership of their learning. And working with peers is an aspect of tinkering activities where they are enjoying process of solving problems and provide individual ideas even to the collaboration process. And social scaffolds through interaction with adults and peers can provide new ideas and insights even to level up students' learning. And lastly, students can construct working models or develop understanding through their sense making in the process of design and construction. For this project, we have yet to complete our analysis, but there are some preliminary findings on students' development through tinkering. I mean, in our interviews with students conducted even several months after some of the activities, some students were very able to clearly articulate what they did and explain with science concepts, even through the rationale of their design. And that's actually quite interesting because many times these students, they seem to forget about what they learned, but they're able to remember those concrete experiences even they had through tinkering. Right. So I think so what we had was that students actually learn from their failures through trials and error, which enable them to learn more. And then the challenges of achieving tinkering activities stretch the abilities of the students' thinking, enabling to learn beyond what they've expected. And also we also found that students draw upon their prior knowledge and make connections to those the various ideas that they had. And also their areas of attitudes and values, students develop a more open mind to learning, to learn about and also to learn about their own abilities through tinkering activities. For example, students reported that they didn't know that they can be so creative, or they could construct something on their own, or even develop perseverance in trying to complete even what they did. And also the last thing was they developed social skills in solving and learning with their peers through problem solving, right? So these are some of the things that we found in what tinkering does. So how do we actually spread this across in a blended learning approach? This example of what tinkering in school is like. So what we have actually is students are supposed to actually build a marble machine that will actually get a marble to run from one end of the machine to another at the longest possible time. So actually we give them materials, they can do it on their own in the center picture. And the last picture is a picture of a constructed marble machine. So this was actually became part of the school activity for their science lesson. The next one actually we want to share is about the after school activity that we had for tinkering, right? So actually we have actually implemented 2 previous after school tinkering activities. We have about 20 students in activities from even the 2 NA classes. For the after school activities, students were introduced in the first session, students were introduced to building a cardboard automata. So on your left picture, you can see actually what a cardboard automata is. Actually, the idea is actually to help them to understand how the cams, mechanical movements work, and how actually this could be used to actually create moving objects, right? So actually the students were also free to create their automata as they like, using arts and craft materials to express themselves or their ideas. So you can see actually how students were actually turning and decorating even their automatas. And then, I mean, they had stories behind these automatas. And also we introduced building of electric circuits with batteries, all right? So you can see batteries, you can see motors. We give them LED lights, they can actually connect all this with circuits, and all these motors and all that actually they can create to their automata. So this was a typical after school tinkering activity, which took about 5 hours, 2.5 and 2.5 hours in over 2 sessions. So how to actually, so we had to think of ways how do we move into a blended activity. right? So, hold on. Okay, so when we are designing about thinking activities, there was actually different approaches that we were thinking about, right? So with the circuit breaker measures, we work on adapting our approaches to a more blended approach. In our previous implementations, we had Science Center, New Life partners, facilitating these after-school programs. But restrictions, we had to think, how can we get our partners, I mean, not all of them can attend, but yet how do we actually facilitate the connection and building rapport with these students, right? So we thought different modes of blended approaches. I think the first, we had like the face-to-face, then we had actually the hybrid approach. The hybrid approach is interesting. We open up the classroom and also we open up a session where actually kids, if they wanted to just not attend the face-to-face session, they should actually decide to go to online and attend the rest of, we join the rest of our classmates. And the third mode we had was actually a total online. That means you use Zoom calls and for everyone to just connect through Zoom. For the face-to-face, we had we actually 4 sessions, right? And the face-to-face were at the 2 ends, right? We start at the face-to-face session and ended with face-to-face session. The second session, we had one hybrid, and then the third session was actually online. So the duration was a series, so 1.5 for face-to-face, 1 hour for hybrid, another one for hybrid. So we realized that actually, yeah, maybe if we reduce even the number of the online and you see how, because we also realized that maybe the kids, from the teacher's recommendation, that maybe we shouldn't, it's better probably for the kids even to be focused, and probably a shorter time be better for them, right? So what happened was that during face-to-face, we set up the classroom, the tinkering space. We have about the individual, we have actually representatives from Science Center, NIE, and school, and the New Life inside. So we have 4 adults and about 11 students in the space, while the rest, actually the adults like me and the rest of the Science Center and counselors from New Life, actually they join us. We joined the activity from online, right? The hybrid also was actually similar, except that we had a class session that we told the students, hey, you want to attend this class session, you can, but if you want to attend the online, yes, we give you the link, you can join us online. So we had this style session. So the only thing was that the facilitators, the one who was instructing and all that, were on Zoom, all right? So we have only 2 teachers, one from NIE and one from school with the students, and then also the rest of us are all online, right? For the third one is everybody's online. The facilitators, the students are all individually online. So this was actually the mode that we can't design. We actually wanted to see what was the students' response to all the different dark modes. What we did also was different, because we wanted to extend even the students' tinkering experience beyond even the face-to-face experience. So we created actually take-home kits for the students. So on the left actually is a take-home kit for the automata, right? So we created all these materials and we gave the students to bring home. On your right, we also a kit for electricity. So you can see batteries, this type of batteries, wires, motors, and all that, which actually we gave the kids. So when they sign up the program, we give them these kits to bring home, right? But how do we, this is how we actually implemented or enacted the blended approach, right? The first session, we had this introduction to electricity, and that's where I think students learn the fundamentals of electricity. We brought through, so we have like connecting the wires and all that. And this was face-to-face, so the Science Center, the New Life instructors were all there, the facilitators were all face-to-face with the students as well, right? We swapped this a bit because we felt that electricity was a bit more difficult for them to tell the kids how to connect and all that. So we decided to do a more face-to-face, right? Typically it was, then on the second session, with introduction to automatas, where we actually introduced the kids to building, how to build automatas. So I mean, how to build the camps and all that. But this time the instructors were online, all right? So the Science Center and on New Life, they were all doing online. So we only had 2 of them one NIE and one teacher, even to help around the kids. Yeah, so that was different. The third one was actually where we actually get the kids to do their projects at home. And then we get this session that we tell them, okay, we're going to have this session. You can come in, can show what you've done. Maybe we can actually help you. And they could actually, what the kids did was they logged in the Zoom. The instructors came in. We had breakout sessions for the kids, and we actually, the instructors went to different rooms. We were assigned different rooms and actually talk to the kids using videos and all that showing. So it's totally online. And the last session was that we brought the kids back to the face-to-face. They were given more time to construct their tinkering artifacts, and also we are able to present even their work, to the facilitators and to those adults. And also this was actually a partial face-to-face and also Zoom, right? I just want to show this a picture from you for you actually as to how it looks like. Here's a Zoom. This is actually taken from a Zoom through a mobile camera. This on the forefront, you can see a picture, the students' artifacts, all right? And at the back, you can see actually the Zoom interface. So imagine if you're in a tinkering class, this is what you'll see. This is where you can see the facilitators. This is where actually you can see the cameras that is being roving around to show the different artifacts. So these are just a sample of the artifacts to give you a feel of what this session is, right? So, so students and attenders, we were actually wondering, okay, how many students will come in and all that. So it was interesting that in the first session, if 11 students actually sign up for this program, we only actually open up to 10, but I think 11 sign up. And it just says, okay, just 11 will come. So we have like 11 in the first session. In the second session, in the hybrid, where we gave them the choice to attend face-to-face online, 8 attended face-to-face, only 1 attended online. And in the third session, only 4 attended online, right? And then on the last session, we had all 11. So definitely, I think you can see that actually the kids even prefer actually a more face-to-face approach given the choice, right? So I just want to share actually what we've learned, findings. And again, these are actually very preliminary findings. We have not really done a very in-depth analysis or tried to look at categorization, but these are some of the things that we just want to share with you maybe firsthand. Okay, overall, we found actually the outcomes of the learning experiences compared even to face-to-face in terms of the students' engagement in science, and much the same actually. So they were actually very engaged in the program. They wanted, even they were requested whether they could have some more and all that. So there was something that we realized that actually it was actually kind of similar, even though less students even attended the online session. All right, but then also we also again realized that we know that from the numbers of students face-to-face was actually the preferred mode of learning. I think there's a few reasons why we asked them. Actually, first, I think they prefer the direct interaction with peers and instructors, preference of face-to-face teaching, and also getting direct help even for instructors, and also observing even their friends. All right. So so these are things that actually we talk to the kids about, and interesting because I think the kids actually, in a way, I think they like actually the type of the classroom type atmosphere that seems for learning. So that's why they prefer even a more direct face-to-face type of approaches. All right. So we really asked the students, for those who don't attend, why they didn't attend and all those things. So they gave actually some things. And some of them are infrastructure, internet connection. They don't have a computer. Their internet was too slow. And some of the students even say that I went out, I was still outside. I had to go to my parents' house. I did not manage my time, forgetfulness. They forgot. And it's actually it's intentional that we did not want to remind the students or kind of force them to come to this online session, because we want to know how they responded and maybe some of the difficulties that they may have even trying to attend these online sessions. So probably it's something that we have to think about, right? And probably students are not used even to coming even online, even for this type of activity. So something that probably if given more time, these students will buy into these ideas, right? So, but also we also are mindful of the logistical, I think, issues for the students, because when we did the after school activities, we didn't really consider the time that the students had to, when they leave school, how much time they will have to go back, set up their machines and all those things. So it was something that it was our oversight that we didn't really think about that. So probably if we want to do it, probably we have to think about when the students are staying, probably how do they get access, prepare themselves even for the online activities, right? Okay. Oops. All right. Also, what we also found that students have students actually have preference for this online approach. So it's realized as an individual that this student actually preferred learning in a more quiet and also more direct approach, even through online. And she find actually that's beneficial to her. All right, and also some students actually expected even more socialization because only 4 students came and he was actually disappointed because hey, where are his friends and all that. So he expected to see more of his friends. And he say he prefers even to be in a breakout room with his friends and actually they could see what they were doing and all that, right? So also in the hybrid mode, we found that actually facilitation of the activity activities was actually challenging even to the instructors. I think one of them said that actually it was very difficult to see the progress of the students and also the problems that students actually were facing during construction, and also especially when you're in Zoom mode and you're on video in a class, it's actually very difficult to see what's actually going on and actually is to actually track the progress of the kids. So it helped that we have actually some live facilitators in the classroom during a hybrid mode that they could actually help the kids even more directly. All right. So in the full online mode, I think what we did was quite useful for the clinic. Instead of just teaching and all that, we had a session where we get the kids even to show what, and the facilitators just had attention with the kids one-to-one and all that. They show the kids even through Zoom, even cameras, trying to position and all that to help the kids out. So that was actually quite useful and quite effective, right? Some of the things that our blended approach is that when we actually get the kids even to do even some of these constructions at home, some kids, the kids actually reported, a sense of being stuck or being helpless in doing their automata. So they say, oh, I don't know why this wires couldn't connect, or didn't know how to go about doing this. So that was actually a sense of, so we had to think through about how could we better support even these kids, even as and when they need the type of help. And they are able to actually draw on resources to get those type of help. And also, I think what we found is these kits that we provided the students, I think provided opportunities for the students to actually continue tinkering even at home. We had an interview with our students. We found that students actually still use the kits. They still create things. One of the students say actually he just used some of the motors, ice cream sticks that he found, blue tack even to create the helicopter. All right. So what we found is that skillful facilitators are needed. All right. So first, face-to-face sessions are actually important to create a rapport with the students. Also, we need to have a consistency in providing a psychological safety net for the students. Helping them along the way. Throughout this whole process, creating a physical space for them to socially interact, and also the construction of these artifacts actually can mediate the students' learning across physical, virtual, and social spaces over time. Just one last slide. What can we do in the end? Actually, what we want to hope to do is to provide a platform for students to connect with one another, instructors, through synchronous and asynchronous modes. For them to share ideas, ask questions, or post pictures anytime they want. Right, so we can also provide student resources for them to learn and generate ideas. For example, guidebooks, short video clips, or links to relevant sites that they can be used as a resource for them even at home. We can actually have regular office hours, even for students, specific times for them to seek help. And also we could actually provide access for students to get materials in schools to complexify their constructions. Right, so that's just a sharing of what we have done, even our blended approach for tinkering. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for Peter for sharing with, your talk with us. Please take note that you can key in your questions in the Q&A. All right, at the bottom of the screen, you can find the Q&A button. Because this is a webinar mode, so we won't be able to hear you or see you as a result. Okay, so we will now proceed to the next speaker. We'll have Dr. Teochew Liu to present her research on knowledge building and sharing with us how she used it to conduct her professional learning and for her teachers. Okay, Dr. Teo, please.
Yes, thank you. Can you see my slide?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, now? Thank you. So I'll just start. This short talk is a case study from a preschool teachers and looking at their knowledge building, them working as a knowledge building community during the lockdown period caused by COVID-19, how we plan and design this knowledge building community, and how it can actually inform us in the design and implementation of professional learning community, especially during the time of such disruption. How do we support teachers in continual innovation? So before I start, I'd just like to bring up these two key considerations. And these are really what we have from the learning sciences. Really the first one is examining at the computer-supported collaborative learning research in classroom and in school, and how such research-based design can actually have an actual impact, sustained practice in classroom and in school. And second consideration, of course, is the knowledge building community as an approach to blended learning, building on Peter's case of a student. Here is a teacher's community. So let me just elaborate very quickly on the first point. And of course, all these are set in the context of the disruption, right? The first one that I just like to talk about is the CSCL research talked about the learning and collaboration and how it is mediated by technology. Second part is how it is important to focus on the teacher's discourse and in the context of the social structure. So part of what I'll go through in the design is really looking at the alignment of the design, the teacher's discourse, the way that the teachers are thinking through their teaching problem, the cognition part, and the context in the disruptive time that we went through. So this will set the background of the work. And as I go into the second consideration, taking teachers' knowledge building community, the two things I'm going to elaborate a little bit is on the community itself based on the principles, the pedagogy, and the technology. And second thing, I think I want to focus today really on the symmetry of teachers as knowledge builder and them practicing knowledge building in the classroom. So a very quick definition of knowledge building community. We ground this design of knowledge building community very much by what Skanamalia wrote in 2002 on the 12 KB principle, which I'll go into it a little bit in a little while. And these principles, such as real idea, authentic problem, it can be represented as 12 habits of mind of the members within the community. And of course, throughout this talk, you'll hear that we continuously engage them in collective responsibility to deepen the understanding of the practice and how we get that across. And we immerse the teacher in a culture of authentic building. Authentic knowledge building, two key ideas that you can take away. First, ideas are public. Ideas are visible. You put it up for everyone to see, you talk about it, you share. And the second one of idea improvement. And we see idea improvement within this teachers community, not as something that is kind of a huge innovative work, but it's incremental. Every day you look at a little bit of change, and we see that in the teachers around us quite often, right? So I'm just going to elaborate on one of the knowledge building. These are the 12 knowledge building principles, which we look at it as a living theory and how it kind of grows and allow the teachers to keep improving their practice. Of course, this 12 principle again is inspired by the work of Skanamalia and Baraita. Just let me elaborate on one of them. We will talk a little bit about the 3 principles here, which I will elaborate. There seems to be a lag in my computer. So the 3 principles will be the symmetrical advancement within the community between the novice and the expert, the people who are new and the people who are already there for many years. How do we create that symmetry in advancement, the collective responsibility and community knowledge, and the real and authentic problem of the teachers. Okay. Just to elaborate on one, which explain how the title of the talk about principle based, right? If you take symmetrical advancement of knowledge, And you define it as everyone has a way of contributing, whether you're an expert, whether you're a novice, and everybody understands to give knowledge is to get knowledge. I think these are nothing new. But what we convert into the way that we design our community is asking ourselves, is every teacher developing their knowledge of knowledge building practice? Okay, the practice itself, what are they developing? Are all the teachers benefiting it? Okay, the experienced one as well as the novice one. How do we continue? The last question in this section 1, the question 4 is important. How do we continue to give agency to everyone in the community? And we have, like I say, because this course is in the center of this knowledge building community, there are some things that we really want to hear teachers practicing within their culture, putting up their ideas so that other people can help advance it and so on. So this is how we convert the principle into design. And I'm going to show you how we actually enact it. So looking at building a teacher KB community, and focusing on that symmetry of teachers as knowledge builder while practicing knowledge building with their students, and the alignment of this design, the discourse, the thinking through, and the context itself. So I'm going to start explaining how we design and implement the whole knowledge building community with the teachers. So this is one of the preschool knowledge building community, and they decided to continue their weekly meeting throughout the lockdown. They had it before, they did it during, and after the lockdown, when they were coming back with groups of students, they continued the weekly meeting. So we do it on both platforms. One is Knowledge Forum, which I'm going to elaborate in a little while, and the other one is Zoom platform, which now we are super familiar with it. So just give me a minute to elaborate on what the teachers were doing on Knowledge Forum. Now, if you haven't seen Knowledge Forum before, it's actually a flexible discussion forum, and it has multimedia affordances. So what I'm showing you here is a conceptual space called Knowledge Forum View. So it's a view, but in the view itself, in this case, we have actually put in a background graphic. And this was not just a random background graphic, but this was a graphic that shows the curriculum map of the amazing human body, which the teachers were working on throughout the term. So we kind of start by mapping out all the possible things about amazing body system and place it as a background. Now, for those of us who are first time looking at Knowledge Forum, this red little box here, each of this box is called a note, a KF note, okay? And this is how a KF note looks like. And within KF note itself, you see these yellow words here. These are what we call the Knowledge Forum scaffold, and these are customizable. So you can see that we are prompting the teachers to think about the big question, big ideas in the activity. And you click on Build On, a new note comes out, you have something to share with your friend, you put up and say that it may be interesting to discuss calcium in the bone, you click on Contribute, and there you go, your note appear connected automatically by a blue line to your friend's note. So this is Knowledge Forum, is a discussion forum, but it has multimedia affordances. Okay, so what we do is, let me just walk you through. First is building the big idea curriculum. Okay, so how do we get teachers to talk about their lesson ideas based on this big idea curriculum? So this is what we call a knowledge forum thread, which is what I show you how the notes were building up. So you can see that the teachers start by very, very casually say that, why don't you show the student this YouTube video, which is of the different skeleton structure of a human body. And the teachers start to say that, you know, use this video, but followed by a KB discussion, and then you use KB principles. What are the KB principles that you're exploring, and how can the activity be further enhanced? So as you see them using the scaffold, they're immediately brought to deepen expand or elaborate their ideas. May not be deepened, but at least they're saying more. They're thinking about the principles, and someone will say that let's connect to our parents. And it's the most interesting thing that during this cycle, the teachers actually decided to send worksheets back home to the family called the knowledge building time. right? So this is how we were building the big idea curriculum with the teachers during their weekly meeting. Okay. Secondly, you can see that you put teachers on a continual improvement using this platform, and we know very well that reflective practitioner is one of the key things, but we have these principles of knowledge building that keep pushing the boundary of their practice. So to the teachers, we keep asking them, is the activity authentic to you or authentic to the student? So within the discussion itself, within the reflection, they keep pushing it. So you can see this is a note by the teacher, and I'm going to just read through. So this was before the COVID, so they went for a field trip. Went to the wet market, went to the hawker center, they had a KB talk, the children came out with many questions, they took a vote, and they have 16 out of 21. And the two questions were, what happened to the food wastage and how to reduce the food wastage? And then you can see the teachers that as a class, they decide that they had to answer both questions. It was not an either or. So when the teachers start to look at this, and we were analyzing to see how the teachers are making decisions. They could start by, at first, the teacher deciding on the question, but now you can see that as a class, we decide that we had to answer both questions. So these are the kind of reflection that we position for our teachers to keep pushing the boundary. Now, the other thing I talked about was the symmetry. Now, so the teachers were on KF, planning their practice. So the teachers start to think that if I'm looking at a curriculum like that, my student need to look at the curriculum like that. And mind you, these are 5 years old. So one of the teachers decided to use an online mind mapping because KF is rather complex for 4 or 5 years old to be doing during home-based learning. So the teacher decided to do a concept map. But while she was talking to the children through Zoom during their home-based learning, she was putting up their ideas on a concept map. And this online concept map was shown to the student. And this online concept map was brought back to the teacher's discussion. And the teachers every week after week were seeing this mind map growing in the class, as well as talk about it in their teachers' discussion. And more interestingly, after the phase of complete lockdown, they started to return to the classroom, and the teachers actually decided to print this and bring back to the classroom. So that seamlessness of bring online to face, and the teachers were practicing it in the community, but they were thinking of how to practice it with their students as well. And some of you can see that this is a Chinese word because the English and the Chinese teacher were working together on the same topic. So as we go further down, these are some collective process dialogue and reflection that we got the teachers to do because it's principle based. So we shared videos of other sites of knowledge building with them, but we also got them to talk about their practice and talk about the different knowledge building principle. I know when we hear principle, we thought that it's very abstract, but the teachers could actually translate it, right? Here the teachers say, I like the idea of a fluid conversation that is very uninterrupted by the teachers between the children. She's referring to this video, and she says the role I like to see myself take would be an observer, a recorder, and facilitator. And this was practiced in her next knowledge building talk and brought back to the community to talk about more. The next kind of design that we didn't allow them to stay as a community. So even during the lockdown, we were very privileged to have different sites of knowledge building classroom, the teachers from different schools locked on together into a Zoom cross-network community discussion, and they were sharing their practice. So one of the preschool teachers said that went back after this network, went back to her own teacher and said, hey teachers, I got really inspired by our primary school teachers during the KB meeting to involve the children in a discussion about essential worker involved in COVID-19. So I planned one of this lesson. I have this lighter template. If you want to use it. So it's always important throughout all time to really be pushing the teachers along the boundary. The last bit that I'm going to talk about is the importance of allowing teachers to create their own knowledge of practice. So every end of the year, we get them to reflect on things, element of knowledge building practice. So this was previous year where they talk about idea diversity, big idea, idea growth, and knowledge pieces. We just ended this year's cycle, and they thought that the three important things that they needed to add to this fall were reflection, and these were reflection with the children. Letting the children think through what they have learned, what is going to be the next thing for us, and always making it meaningful. And they talk about pervasiveness and talk about rise above. So I think while the teachers go through the knowledge building community, they kind of were just talking about their practice, and it's important to come together to kind of create all this rise above about their practice. This is just a quick glance of the result. We analyzed the teacher's design knowledge in this component, the adaptability, their design thinking in terms of creativity and experimenting with solution. We look at their teacher's leadership in terms of all this component, coordination, parents' involvement, contribution, their collaboration within and between class. Over the two cycle, the first cycle from January to March, obviously just right before the lockdown, and the second cycle from April to June. You can see the three colors being low, medium, or high. I won't go through the detail of the analysis, but you can see how the teachers over time were shifting, and some for very good reason. The second half dropped contribution because at certain point they had to kind of reconfigure. So they were talking more about redesigning their work and so on. So for good reason, some of this really were, didn't just keep increasing in the second cycle, but we can see that over time, we were seeing a gradual, very, very healthy trend of teachers developing their design knowledge. So just coming back to the last bit, I think this is my last slide. Going back to where I started off in terms of how CSEL has supported teachers and students' work, I think looking at the practice, norm, and culture, I think a PLC or a KBC doesn't exist on its own. It exists within the practice, norm, and culture. We have seen cases where the people would say that I want to build my teachers into a knowledge building community, but they need not practice knowledge building in class. And those are the things that we have to look at. So in terms of the alignment of the design, I think we have actually looked at some of the realignment that the teachers keep seeking, and the enculturation of these knowledge building teachers towards emerging ideas and questions somehow elevated their awareness to this continuous design and new knowledge. So I term it kind of a good disruption. If you look at your students' question and idea as a good disruption happening every day, now when the big disruption comes, you kind of say, okay, this is what we have to do. We have to keep changing anyway, so let's keep changing and let's keep working together. So I think there's kind of a very good fit in the way that the teachers are practicing knowledge building as a community themselves and in their classroom. Yeah, so I think this is the last slide. I just want to acknowledge that this is actually funded by SkillsFuture, and we are working with some of the preschool on this knowledge building community work. And the last slide is the reference. So I'm going to pass the time back to Lei Hun.
Thank you, Dr. Teo. Because of the time constraints, I will leave most of the questions towards the last segment, which is the Q&A. But I would appreciate if the attendees could put in their question in the Q&A sessions, because this Q&A section allow the panelists to actually type in answers for some of the clarification questions, and therefore all the attendees will be able to see the answers itself. And some of the questions which are more interesting, I will actually broadcast them live later so that the panelists can answer them live. All right, thank you very much for your cooperation, and I'll now move on to the very last speaker for today's webinar, and that is Dr. Elizabeth Cole, who will be sharing with us 2 digital platforms that are suitable for online learning. Thank you, Dr. Cole. Please.
Hi, a very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for just coming on board this afternoon, this Friday afternoon. And so I thank my colleagues, Peter and Julie, who have even shared about how they have gone about with their respective interventions and shown how learning is still possible during this time of pandemic, during this time of home-based learning. And you can see my slides. I am be talking about formative learning analytics. And so this is, I'll be explaining more what this is, but I've been looking at this area of learning analytics for formative feedback, for formative assessment in my next slide. So what is first, what is learning analytics? I think for some of you, this might be new, but this is one of the most common definitions of learning analytics, and it's by the founders of the Society of Learning Analytics, George Siemens and Dragan Gasavic. So it's about the measurement, collection, analysis of data about learners for understanding and optimizing learning and environments it occurs. And going on to formative assessment and formative feedback. So the basic idea is to basically give learners, to establish where learners are in their learning, how they are progressing, and what can be done more. And so putting all these words together, the idea of formative learning analytics is in capturing activities, dispositions, outcomes in a system for identifying and analyzing how learners are doing and progressing to be able to help them to learn, to know where to go forward in their learning. And for my research, I've been focusing on not only helping students in mastering certain content, but also in helping them in their 21st century skills or 21st century competencies. And I'll be sharing two projects. The first project I'll be sharing is on My Group Buddy for geography, and the second will be on COVA. So let's start with My Group Buddy for geography. And what this system and what this project is that we have developed a tool to help students in geography, to help them in certain geographical topics, as well as to actually help them in their teamwork. And we have designed this system together with teachers and education ministry officers for a blended learning environment. And right now we have I would just like to focus on three key design principles of this system. The first is a collaborative inquiry model for geography learning and teamwork. We realize that it's important to have I would say a huge framework as pedagogical framework for learners and teachers as they actually go through their activities. And this holistic framework actually brings together the geographical inquiry process. For some of you, you might notice sparking curiosity, gathering data, and so on, as well as what my team and I have been developing for some time, the team itself diagnostic learning framework, which has 4 stages consisting of team-based concrete experiences, building the awareness of their teamwork, making reflection and sense-making, and monitoring them to grow and change. So this was the framework that we use in this whole activity. And the second design principle is that we wanted students to actually have the collaborative space with choices and scaffolds so that they can represent their knowledge visibly in their team, and that in terms of how we have designed the different sections, these working documents had guiding questions as scaffolds to help students, and so students were allowed to be flexible about submission to encourage them in their motivation in this activity. And thirdly, this whole system also makes teamwork more explicit. And we have designed 4 dimensions of teamwork, or four aspects of teamwork competency, which are in blue here. These 4 dimensions have been validated in the past studies, and they are to do with coordination, about sharing activities, team activities on time, mutual performance monitoring, to do with checking, constructive conflict about sharing ideas and trying to sort of discuss through discussion to discuss them and clarify them. And the last one, team emotional support, which is the emotional aspect of the team, psychological support. And so we have designed this, I would say, an instrument, assessment tool inside this system where students were able to self-rate themselves as well as rate their team members about this. And this is visualized to them to make explicit their teamwork competency and to enable them to think about their teamwork and to reflect on that. And so I'd like to share with you how this was enacted just earlier this year in March, our last and final trial. And as you know, the pandemic happened. And so the first part, as you can see, it followed sort of where the typical blended learning classroom, where students were in classroom and they would use computers or their handphones. So they started with conducting preliminary research, gathering some data, and then HBL started on 8 April this year. And so where everybody had to study from home. So this is when everything moved online, and so the rest of these activities are all done online. In a more, I would say, self-directed way by the students, not so much led by the teacher, but these were milestones given by the teachers, and the students were supposed to try to follow them and to submit their project on time. And so this example of one of the classrooms, one of the teachers' classes, and then I'll show you some of the feedback that we have from the students as we did the post-survey, the descriptive survey findings. So we asked them, to what extent was My Group Buddy for Geography helpful for them for their geographical investigation during home-based learning? And you can see from this compilation that out of the 59 responses, it was slightly over half was positive. There were 70% who gave a bit more negative statements, and some did, another small number, 14% did not respond. So what were the positive statements like? So you can look at this here. So one student mentioned that he or she found it, since they can't go to school to learn, it makes things way easier as everything can be found and submitted online, which makes it convenient and less stressed. Another student mentioned we could easily exit our worksheets and everything was neatly organized according to the steps in doing the project, which greatly helped us in staying on track. So you can see some of the advantages that MGBGO had, but there are also some negative, or there are some parts that could be improved, or some things that happened, because actually this was a geographical investigation. So actually they were supposed to do more field work, go out to the field, but because basically they were not able to do it in such a mass manner. So they were actually supposed to go, basically in their small groups, go to different sites, basically just one site. So a lot of it was, I would say, theory. So that's one of the comments from one of the students. It was quite theoretical without much practical. And also some students preferred live, this particular student preferred live class. Going on to the next slide, we also asked them how they found the visualizations of teamwork. So for this, generally we found useful, students found it useful because they could see what other members thought of them and what they are lacking, and aim to work towards improving his or her weaknesses. Yeah, so another similar comment about how they could see how students look at them from their perspectives and how they can improve from there, and they can give feedback to them also. So this actually makes a lot more explicit teamwork, which tends to be not so much emphasized. It is emphasized in a way that, all of you are working in a team, but this actually tries to highlight or emphasize some of the process aspects of working in a team that is not usually so commonly articulated. But yes, you can see there's some not so useful comments here, and like one of the students probably needed to know more on the motivation of why he or she is doing this. Okay, so so this is, I would say, a short sharing from My Group Buddy for Geography, and focusing on really how home-based learning was done. And next, I'll go on to COVA, or Collaborative Video Annotation and Analytics Environment, or COVA for short. And this is the latest version that we have, called COVA PD. PD for Professional Development. And for this project, we worked with officers from the Physical Education and Sports Teacher Academy, PESTA, and as well as EdTech division officers for this project, alongside researchers. The idea is to actually to use videos, lesson observation videos, to help teachers, learners to basically, I'm calling the teachers learners, yeah, to collaborate, view, annotate, and engage in rich reflective dialogue to promote collaborative learning, as well as to help them in the design enactment of their lessons. So what COVA has is a video-based interface that allows time point-based video annotation at different time points of the video. And you can reply to the video, to the discussion at that time point, as well as metacognitive prompts, as you can see here, such as, and this can be customized by the coach. So in this case, we use Singapore teaching practice tags as the metacognitive prompts. And on the other side of this is the part where the visualizations, where we have learning analytics visualizations for timely feedback. And this focuses on the interaction of who talks to who, as well as the metacognitive tags that was used. So this was also done this year. And I just want to highlight this, our final trial tree, where we had these groups of teachers who participated in the trial. So earlier in February and March, we had one primary school, and this was all done in face-to-face with 1 week asynchronous discussion between sessions, where they would supposed to go online to Cova PD to actually discuss. And so after 3 weeks, there were about 69 replies on the system. And then after that, HBL set in. And so actually in terms of the design, it was quite similar, 3 sessions. However, this was mostly virtual. We had one school which had 1 face-to-face and 2 virtual, but the rest were totally virtual over Zoom. And similarly with the face-to-face, it was 1 week asynchronous discussion between sessions. So this was in 2 primary schools and 1 secondary school. And for the videos, we also used 3 Singapore teaching practice tags. And in terms of the number of annotations and replies, after 3 weeks, it was 58 to 83, depending on the school. And how the instructor or the coach used the dashboard data was at the second session, where she actually showed the learners, the teacher learners, the pre-service, not pre-service, the teachers, how they actually, how their discussion looked like. So for example, for the discussion network, what does your discussion look like? And is it one directional? Are you just replying to yourself? That's what a one directional one. If it's an arrow to yourself, or one direction means you're just asking somebody a question or you're replying to somebody only, and there's no sustained conversation going on. And then she also used an Excel file, which you can actually download to actually go through the annotations in more detail to deepen the discussion and levels of reflection. And these are pictures of, first on the left-hand side, the face-to-face and enactment. And on the right-hand side, the Zoom enactment, the virtual enactment, where basically it's similar to this, you can see slides, but in this case, you can see everybody who's talking. And so we asked them, how did they find, the teachers, how did they find using Zoom, basically, and I mean during this time of home-based learning. So the first set of questions are to do, this is from the qualitative part of the survey, the engagement with the discussion. And if you can briefly look through some of the comments, the teachers appreciated that they could input their thoughts at their own time. There was meaningful discussion and clarification. And in terms of using Zoom, it was a good experience. And another teacher said there was not much difference. But some teachers said face-to-face, there might have been more involvement. And going on to engagement of the dashboard. So teachers appreciated that they could see interactions with each other. It was interesting use of statistics. They liked it, good. But some teachers did not find any difference, and they needed more practice with it. And lastly, we asked them how they thought about using Cova PD as a platform for teacher PD during home-based learning. So one teacher said, Cova PD has filled up the gaps where we can meet weekly to learn, to try out and share. Another teacher said it helped in documentation, being part of the process of learning rather than an end-all accumulation. But there also might be some challenges such as setting up timeline, setting up the group norms of community building, which we did through the process, but I think there's probably much practice, there's more practice that needs to be done in terms of that. Yeah, but most teachers are positive, it's easy or it's worth a try. And so this is my last slide to conclude. So I've shared with you 2 different projects that happened during when the pandemic happened, and some of the adaptations that were made in terms of the design. As you can see, most of them, in terms of the changes, there were very little changes to the pedagogical designs. They more or less stayed the same. And these systems, these formative learning analytics systems, were actually easily adapted to these, to the home-based learning or the online medium, totally online. And in terms of the findings from the responses, I mean, they were generally positive, and it showed how learners were able to still meet their learning goals in a virtual environment, although some preferred face-to-face. And in general, for formative learning analytics, there's this greater sense of awareness of your own learning, as well as those of your peers. And also you're able to gain a deeper understanding of the various learning goals through reflection and dialogue. So just want to wrap up that these designs offer great potential for easy integration in learning practices of the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koh. Let's wrap up the very last talk for our webinar today. So now I will begin the last segment, which is the Q&A. Can we have all the panel to come in? Dr. Xiao. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. So I just want to repeat that you can type in the question in the Q&A using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So we have quite a number of questions already in, and our panelists have also answered some of the questions that are more clarifying in nature. So you can also see the answers to those clarifying questions that has already been typed out. So now I will proceed to read out some of the questions so that our panelists can answer them live. Okay, so let's have the first question that has been asked of Dr. Xiao's talk. Wonder how artifacts are evaluated and given feedback in the absence of physical model, and how satisfied are both students and teachers in this mode of instruction?
Okay, right, thank you for your question. Okay, for our tinkering artifacts and all that, actually we don't evaluate it. In fact, actually what we're actually interested are actually the process that the students go through the tinkering process, right? I mean, things that when they are constructing the artifacts, they go through a lot of process of thinking, exploring, testing ideas, iterating even through all this process of trying, failing, and seeing what works best, and also the idea of complexifying, all right? So, so it's not so much of the outcome, but more the process that the students go through that we're actually more interested in. Yeah. So even in the school, when we are doing tinkering, it's very interesting because most of the time when we do projects and all that, we always want to evaluate students on, oh, how's your project and how do you do this? How well is the project done? But at the end, one very interesting, even the teachers have a change of thinking about what tinkering is, because when we are doing all these tinkering activities, a teacher says at the end, okay, don't worry about how you just explain to us how your tinkering project works. And I remember a few times when we are doing all these tinkering projects, because they're all like made of all recycled stuff, and sometimes they just break down before the projects. And the teachers are so assuring to the kids and says, don't worry, just show what you have. And sometimes you only see a board that's empty and there's a few holes and a few slopes and all that. And the kids says, just explain to us, how do you think your project? And it's so interesting to see how the kids have the confidence even to share their projects, tinkering projects, even without a completed one or broken down and all that. And also their friends even applauding them for even presenting their project. So we are interested actually in the process itself, not so much on the outcomes or not the finished product, right? Yeah, actually, again, the whole thing is just a process for us. I mean, it's a facilitators, it's students and all that. Even for us is to see how actually students even are able to be involved more actively in learning. All right, so I think in the classroom, actually we observe even many of the classrooms and all that. And one of the things that, for example, one of the things that we did for tinkering, we tried different tinkering activities. So even we tried replacing even some of the science activities or experiments. Most of you know that science experiments are very structured. They have very specific outcomes. But in tinkering, one of the tinkering activities, we explore about the concepts of lights. We say, okay, you're supposed to given all these materials, can you make a light shine from one point to another point? And what's interesting that when the kids are able to, teachers were actually very surprised at how the ideas that the kids came about at the end. And it's interesting that when we look at all the tinkering projects, we have never seen two tinkering products alike anytime. They're all so different and they're so unique even to the students' learning. Yeah, right, thank you. How we answer the question?
Thank you very much, Peter, for answering that questions. There are a few more questions for Peter, but I will just to give the panelists a fair chance to answer their questions. I'll now move on to another question for Dr. Teo. Dr. Teo, could 5-year-old children understand the words written by their teachers?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think I wasn't clear. So the teachers were actually scribing the students' word. So if they say that, I wonder how many bones are there or how my bones are growing. So the teachers would be then, during the home-based learning, would be typing those words. So you're right, maybe not immediately they recognize, but the teacher would pull out the online map every day. And then in school, they do the same thing. So the child will be saying, I think gravity is because something is pulling us down. So the teachers will be writing those words as the child was talking. If I could just jump to the second question I was saying, so that is actually why in terms of analyzing the children literacy skills in this project, we saw some growth in it, but that's the next question. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's the more scribing than the teachers type and then for them to read. No, that's an interaction that is very precious in knowledge building. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So another question for our third speaker, Elizabeth. Okay, basically these are just clarifying questions. So will you, because it's typed on the chat, so Elizabeth won't be able to type up the answers for everyone to see. So it's better to answer this live. The question is, will we have access to the slide used by Dr. Koh? Any other website where we can read out more on your research? And how about, what do you think about the applications? Can it be applied to other subjects?
Okay.
Dr. Koh, please.
Yeah, so thanks for the questions. I mean, all these are still work in progress. So my group work buddy for geography is sort of a new, or a project that's new and ending. So I guess that's why I'm still writing up the details. And COVA PD similarly, but there are precedents of these projects. My group buddy for geography, the previous project was called My Group Work Buddy, and for COVA PD, the previous project was called just COVA. Yeah, so there are writings about these. So the slides, yeah, they can be made accessible later, I guess, through the committee. And so in terms of both projects, we actually want to, in instance, try to use this for as many different contexts as possible. So actually COVA started off for secondary school kids, and now we are trying it out with adult learners, with teachers. So actually, yes, there's a lot of different context that it can be used. So, and we have tried it out, I would say, similarly for My Group Buddy, we are trying it out now similarly for adult learners, and we've tried it in different subjects, such as any subject which has a group project. Yeah, so I think it's quite, well, I mean, in terms of the tools that we're designing for formative learning analytics, it's meant to be flexible for different subjects. Yeah.
Great. So, okay, so now we will move on to the next questions for Dr. Xiao. Okay, so this questions is about blended approach to tinkering. So the question is, blended approach to tinkering seems more resource intensive than normal face-to-face model, needing kits and extra facilitator. Do you think this could be done in a more sustainable way if students are more familiar with the format? Yeah. Dr. Xiao, please.
Okay, I think definitely. I think we also want to work it sustainable even for the school, even to run it, and also I think to have even partners to be involved, but maybe not. But because this was the first time that we were running it in a blended mode, I think everybody was actually interested to see how we can run it in a blended approach. But I think in the future, we have been discussing the school how we can actually make it more sustainable, even for the teachers and even for the its partners. So I think one of the things that, for example, one of the things that we were thinking of actually, if we could have actually the kids also requested if they could have access to some of these tinkering spaces in the school. And actually these tinkering spaces, they can be in there working on their projects and all those things. And you don't need to have like 5 adults inside, but you only have 1 adult to be there to just guide the kids or to show the kids to make sure that everything is safe. So we are like trying to work on a more sustainable model for this tinkering. And as I also believe that I think once the kids get used to this format of how they should be involved in this tinkering, I think we can actually have less resources needed to sort of work with the students. Yeah, and this is something that we're working on, and hopefully I think we will let you know what's the best way what's the optimal way of doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll move on to another question for Dr. Teo. For knowledge building, how successful was this for students?
Yeah, so for this project, I didn't get to, our main focus is on the teacher, but there are 3 areas that we actually try to look at the impact on the students. So first is in preschool, you know that the teachers work with a developmental checklist. So they report the children's development in terms of their physical movement, their social emotional movement, their literacies, their numeracy. So one of the things we added was the graphical literacy. And throughout the time with the teachers, we actually help them to identify episodes that demonstrate children displaying this development. So by comparing the developmental checklist from the teachers when they were doing KB and before, the teacher's reflection is that there are drastic changes in this. But we didn't stop at that. Now we are in the phase of interviewing the parents. So even the parents' interview was, I think, was a huge encouragement and was a surprise to us, because some of the parents actually reflected that they realized something different in their children, but they didn't know that knowledge building was happening. So, but we have to dig a bit deeper to say that it was some of this interaction that changed. But the interviewing with parents was quite forthcoming, but we are in the midst of collecting more of this data. The third one, we didn't get access direct to the students, so we were analyzing their learning artifact. Like, let's say their portfolio drawing, their annotation of their drawing. And we realized that just now what you say, the children's vocabulary was changing. Like, they were using more connecting terms. Like before that, they would say that I am recycling. Then the next phase, when they will say, me, my mother, and my brother, we are doing this. So there are all these graphical, there are all these different of the children artifact that we are analyzing. But for this study, we didn't get access to the teachers. The teachers are very interested, but we have to get additional permission to do that. Yeah, so that's my response.
Thank you. So I see a lot of my questions disappearing from my screen. That's because they have been answered through typing. So the next questions for Dr. Kaur is, the COVA software looks very promising. Will it be made available for use of coaching educators?
Sure. Actually, I was just about to answer that question, but yeah. Yes, so actually we're in talks with PESTA to see how this can be further extended beyond this current project, because the project is ending. And so there are plans. So I guess stay tuned for those further plans. Yeah, but I guess we can go on to the second question, because it talks about how the seamless moving from face-to-face to home-based learning during the lockdown. So is that something that teachers should aim toward? Yeah, I feel that it's I think as teachers, it's part of one of the things, characteristics or skills that we should have is that we have to be very adaptable, right? Adaptable to all circumstances. So yes, so that seamless moving from to face-to-face or whichever kind of context to totally online is something that is part of the repertoire of a teacher, right? To be able to handle the different situations. And actually, if it helps the teacher to actually think about certain things that he or she has not thought before in a deeper manner, reflect about it more, I think that that's even better, because then in a sense this is what, you know, a certain change can help to trigger even I would say more reflective thoughts about your own teaching practice or certain things that you've been taking for granted in the past. So yeah, I would say this is important.
As this question is directed also to Dr. Teo's presentation, would Dr. Teo like to add on to this question about seamless learning?
Oh, okay. I was busy typing the answer.
Oh, okay. Or you
Yeah.
like to read out your answers then?
No, I was actually addressing another question. So is it the one on the face-to-face to
Yeah,
HBL during lockdown?
seamless move from face-to-face to HBL. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm actually writing up some of this in relation to the disruption. We have also found that the disruption itself is a good opportunity to change the mode of practice, but the quality of practice may or may not change. Right, so this disruption could have two ways. So I'm always in the way that looking at, you know, evidence-based, but what is the theory that drive the practice. So I think definitely we should look at the seamless move, because as our teachers and children are exposed to different mode of engagement, we should ride on this opportunity. But how do we ensure that as we make use of this opportunity, how do the quality of it, what kind of interaction are we looking at? I think those are the things that we should hold quite, we should really focus on. Yeah.
Okay. So just to go back to Dr. Xiao, do you know if the next question for you is, do you know if the blended approach of taking resources home for HBL has continued in the school?
Okay, I think we just completed this this blended approach, I think, in school. I think we have not shared with the school actually is what actually from what we found out. But I think definitely we were thinking of how to actually engage the students after school and also during the longer holidays in tinkering. So having one of these kits, and we found that actually the learning actually still carries on with the kids, because the kids have access to all these kits. But doesn't mean that giving out these kits, the kids will learn. But I think we need to provide a type of tinkering activities for them, even online, face-to-face, even they can log on. So we need to provide not just the kids, but also to provide actually how can we continually support them even during the holidays and all that. So I think it's not just the kids, but also how the other staff support platforms that we need to come up with just for the students as well. But I think this is something that probably we're to pick up at the school, and we're also exploring with a New Life. They run a lot of student hub centers in the communities. Probably how can we even bring this even to communities, and they actually can run some of these online platforms that can support the kids, given the kids, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So maybe the next question for Dr. Teo is, please share more about the manner in which the teacher discourse analysis was done in your KB study.
And I think because, yes, I'm typing this question, the teacher's discourse. So yes, we analyze for the quality of the discourse in terms of how it moves from fragmented discourse. That means the teachers are not really building on ideas, to whether they are just sharing of information, like idea sharing, to whether they actually develop new insights, like the short example, you know, whether they are looking at knowledge building practice, whether they are engaging the parents community. So we look at the quality of the knowledge building thread. The other thing that we are looking at is also how the teachers actually approach the teaching problem. So a few areas that we look at is, one of the areas is curriculum. So we realize that it's really important to have this big idea curriculum to tackle, even just now, this question about seamless moving in and out from school and back to home and back to school again, that big curriculum. So there are a few areas of practice that we look at, whether it's knowledge building or not. This practice should be of concern. They are the curriculum, students' capability, technology use, and the constraint. Why constraint is important? Because that's the way you look at how teachers tackle. Time is never enough. So how do teachers approach this time issue or infrastructure issue? This is how we are analyzing their discourse to see whether they are tackling it in a different way now that they have a student's idea and a more idea-centric practice in mind. Yeah, so this is how we have been analyzing the discourse.
Okay. So the next question for Dr. Koh, for the group work buddy tool, do you find that students actively try to score on the 4 aspects of teamwork? Are they given guidance on how to do this?
Great, thanks for your question. So for my group work buddy, for the 4 dimensions, we do actually, because they're still part of school, the teacher actually will guide them, and the system also will sort of guide them, like give them some guidelines such as please rate honestly. Yeah, so that's one of the key guidelines. And also the other thing we also mentioned is that actually the ratings of their peer ratings will be anonymized. So it's not, you don't exactly know how your friend will be rating you, but it's actually going to be, because it will be averaged by the number of team members in their team. So that there's another element of safety through the anonymity. So in that sense, we try to give them that safe space to help students to really want to use this tool as a way to help in their development. So not really to evaluate them, but to really help them. And because we also tell them after this, you're going to discuss about it, so they know that they are going to talk about their teamwork. So the idea is from the start we do. The teacher and part of the design is to let them know this is a safe space for their development of their teamwork. So in a sense, do they try to score the 4 aspects? I mean, some students might want to still do that, but at the end of the day, this is really part of their formative development. We don't really use this in any way that affect them. In the sense is we don't treat it as part of the grade of their subject. It's not, so it's really for their own development. So I believe students won't exactly want to score or play it. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Okay, so one question for Dr. Teo. What form did the students' reflection take?
So these are very young children. Thanks for the question. So one of the thing they do is a lot called knowledge building talk. You can liken it to a circle talk in class, but we have also created this scaffold card for preschool. So the teachers will be doing the talk with them, but those are reflection talks. Sometimes we call it meta talk because you get children to think about what's next. How have we done? How well have we done? Have you learned enough? So these are the questions. That's one thing. The second thing that is actually an innovation from the teachers is they have started creating children's portfolio that trace their learning from the start of the recycling all the way through 7 weeks, 8 weeks, and the children will be drawing, asking questions. So they now at the end of the term, they each had a little booklet, which is called their knowledge building journey, which record, and they brought it home and they talked to their parents about it.
Thank you. So we have one last questions on the Q&A, and I think because it's not addressed to any single of the panelists, so I think it's open to all of you. So I'll read out the question. Are there good practices to efficiently assess online learning, that is, not standardized closed-ended questions or poll during the lesson, so that teachers have an accurate sense of how effective learners in mass classrooms are learning and can take immediate action to address any learning gaps?
I'm going to start and then maybe the rest can add on. I think the first question I would ask is what would you be assessing? I think broadly, if you are assessing directly content, I think, or you are assessing more of the deep understanding, which is how they are understanding, or like we always say, the 21st century skills, how they are critically thinking about a problem. So it depends on what you are assessing. My work focus more on whether children are thinking about problem, how they are tackling it. Even in primary school and secondary school, my work revolves around there. So similar to what Elizabeth talked about learning analytics, we have a set of analytics embedded in KF. So teachers could very quickly pull out students' word cloud that shows how and how their discussion are going, whether it is just getting enough of the words that she wants to talk about in, or students are using a lot more sophisticated word. So we have the word cloud, and we have things like scaffold tracker that shows the teachers at one glance whether the students are all asking questions, or they are theorizing, or they are able to critically say that this idea doesn't explain. So we call it the more advanced scaffold. So we have learning analytics that, but I'm talking about online discourse. So you can imagine if you have 40 students and you say everybody run notes. So you have 40 notes almost in that 10 minutes. So these are visualization that we have been developing and seeing how teachers use this visualization to pick up promising part of the discussion to move it forward. So that's primarily where my work focused on. I'm going to pass to Elizabeth and Peter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, so just to add on to what Julie's mentioned. So, I mean, I think first our work has some convergence in that we use tools, learning analytics tools, systems, and so the analytics actually tries to pick out or identify indicators, aspects of learning to provide some kind of feedback to the teacher or the learner. And so in terms, to answer the question, are there good practices to efficiently assess? I feel there is one thing to take note of all these indicators. There's going to be, every system has their own like different kind of indicators. And one thing as I develop the systems, not everything is necessary. And also the other thing to note is that it's good to see this as really formative and not for evaluation in the sense of like a summative assessment. It's really to give a sense, and when you look at all these indicators, it's good to see not just one indicator, but a few. Yeah, that's why we provide sort of different kinds of indicators to show the different aspects of students. So for the case of the different tools, I mean, one simple way is like if there's a discussion or discourse, I mean, right now most systems have like, they measure like number of replies, right? Number of replies, number of posts. So those are really, I would say, very simple statistics that systems can have, but do take note that these can also be simplistic. So I guess for me in my own tool development, we are trying to go towards more indicators that will actually look at quality, but to actually draw out these quality indicators, it's not so easy and it's a long endeavor. So like say the teamwork one that I'm looking at, I've also developed a teamwork language type of way of measuring teamwork through what they type in the chat, online chat, because we have an online chat. And so that has been a long work. And so that's something that we're trying to improve on to show as students or people type on the chat, what are the markers of good teamwork language as they talk. So these are things that I'm sort of in the process of developing. So I would say it's not, so I guess to sum up what I'm saying, it's I think to have a few indicators and to note that these indicators don't tell you everything. But as a teacher, it's continue to, to at least to know these different indicators that could help you in addressing your teaching concern.
Thank you, Dr. Koh. Dr. Xiao, would you like to have the final word to end off this Q&A session?
I just have a few thoughts. I think our first thing, talk about formative assessment and all that. I think what is it that we are trying to assess? And also from what we are assessing, what is the specific feedback that we can give to the students? So I think we need to know what our feedback we want to give. And also there are many ways that I think we can look into students' learning. It's not just text, but also I've been looking into some things like animations. I mean, we can get students draw animations, mind maps. So it can be actually a system of assessments, not just one particular point, but a system of different components that we can actually have a way of assessing even thought learning and also give you a specific understanding of how the students are learning and thought specific feedback you can give. So again, I look into also the chronological aspect of how students are developing those ideas over time. So although you want to just not the single time point, but how those ideas are being developed over time. So you need to consider the chronological aspect of the ideas development. Yeah.
Thank you. So I believe that I have answered most, our panelists have answered most of the questions in the Q&A. You can find the type answers also in the Q&A sessions if you find that some of the questions have not been answered live. But if you have, sorry if I miss out any of the questions, but if that's the case, please feel free to email the panelists. I'm sure they'll be very happy to engage you further after this webinar. So thank you very, very much for staying on with till the very end of today's webinar. But before you go, we would greatly appreciate if you could provide us with your feedback by scanning the QR code. Okay, so you can scan the QR code and then provide the feedback for us. Okay, we also like to announce our next speaker for our next webinar. He'll be Professor Mike Sharples, who will present on the pedagogy, the informed design or dual education at scale. It will be held on 28 October, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Singapore time, of course. So for those who are interested, please sign up by scanning the QR code as well. Okay, with that, thank you very much for all the attendees as well as our panelists for their very insightful sharing. Have a great weekend ahead and also a great evening tonight. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Lei Hun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.